Hello, welcome to What the Feminine, where we will show the world how to have crucial, nuanced conversations and how to have a healthy masculine and feminine embodiment, which are the gateway to global healing. I'm Nicole George, the CEO and founder of Sovereign Magazine. And as the host and moderator of the show, I'd like to remind our guests and audience that the questions posed in today's episode are neither a reflection of my personal beliefs, opinions, thoughts, or ideologies nor of Sovereign Magazines. They are simply a guide for us to go deeper into our constructed beliefs and ask ourselves, how can we remain open and curious to being recoded to a more compassionate and cohesive way of living? The content in this episode could contain references to topics and difficult subject matters, so please, please, please honor yourself and inner knowing, as our show is never a substitute for any professional guidance. Please always seek the guidance of a certified professional. Today, we have the pleasure of two beautiful women here today. We might have two others who might just be a little tardy, but that's okay. They can come in when they feel aligned. So first, I'm going to have Ebonie introduce herself, and then we will do Eva.
Hi, I'm Ebonie Allard. I am a leading energy alchemist, embodiment specialist, and empowerment facilitator. And I share my insights with the best wisdom keepers, culture makers, and embodiment guides in the world. And I help them remember who the fuck they really are so that they can live fully, love deeply, and lead authentically.
Yes, yes, yes. And you're calling in from, if we couldn't tell.
England today, yes. Well,
Yeah.
sometimes you can tell by my accent, sometimes you can't.
Yes, sometimes you're in Spain and who knows where else. All right, Eva.
Glad to be here. My name is Eva Alexandre, and I am a business mentor, and I'm a creator of the Resonance Business Architecture and the Resonance Path game. And both of them are built around the need to fully understand how you want to build your business that completely resonates with who you are and with how the business itself wants to grow and show up in this world as well. So what I generally work with the service providers, consultants who are got to the point in life that when they feel a little bit overwhelmed with the business, and maybe not just a little bit, a lot of overwhelmed with the business. And this is where I come in and we completely restructure the business, how it runs, what exactly it does in the world, what kind of vision is for this business in the world and for the person itself. We find alignment between the two and rebuild, redesign that business. We don't start from scratch. There's already a lot of foundation in the business, and we just make it better. And that's what I do.
I love this so much. So, we're going to be talking about spiritual leadership and walking the edge between your ego and your essence. And I always like to start with definitions because we all might have a different definition for it. And I know ego is one of Emma's favorite things. She was on the cover of Power and Ego. So, we're going to be talking about that today. So, why don't you define a couple of things? I think first we need to talk about what is spiritual leadership, but then also what is ego versus essence, or whatever you want to call the other side of ego. Who wants to
Of
go
course,
first?
I
You
can
want to go
start since
first?
it's
Okay,
kind
go.
of like that down my road. So let's start with the ego. Ego, my definition of ego, and I know there's quite a lot of them, but this is the way that I operate with, and it's sitting on the interjection of how psychology defines it and how spiritual world defines it as well. So the ego is the part of us. It's essentially our human mind, our general thoughts, ideas, behaviors, actions, perceptions of the world. How we think, how we feel, it's all defined by the ego. It gets developed at the age of around 5 to 6 years old, and it essentially identifies how the person needs to survive in this world. So it's how we adjust in this world. So ego's role is essentially the protective mechanism for us to be able to psychologically, mentally survive it, survive the world, find our place in the world, define how the world operates. And at certain point, when we're children, it's actually amazing to have that because it helps us, as I just mentioned, survive. It helps us adjust. It helps us adapt to what exactly is happening in the world, in our family, in our social environment. But at some point in life, as we continuously grow, it becomes restrictive because that's when we realize that the ego also holds a lot of limiting beliefs in it. The how ego chooses to protect us, the human us, is very different from what the reality of the world is. And that's why it's very important to understand what is our ego self and where is our higher self? And that comes down to the second definition. So the higher self is essentially, essence is a good word. Another word is the soul. It just wants to grow. It just wants to continuously go and do something better, be something better. It's that inner voice that it's telling you that is like, no, let's do this now. And a lot of times it goes against the ego because ego is like, no, 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 we're not going to do that. While the higher self, our true essence, really wants to grow because that's essentially what we're here for. We're here to experience the human ego, the human life, and we're here to experience our soul growth because through that experience, that's how it grows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know it took quite a bit of time here, but
I asked a lot of questions, so that's perfectly okay. Okay, Ebony, how would you define them?
Oh, it's so interesting because having been in this world of spirituality, leadership, embodiment for 3 decades now, I would have explained it very, very similarly to Eva up until very recently. And now I'm going to bring almost the complete opposite definition. And I recognize that it goes against everything psychology talks about, everything mostly spirituality talks about, everything the last 20, 30 years has talked about. But I think it's changing, and bear with me. The ego, so in the work that I do and the kind of tools that I work with, I'm working with astrology, human design, gene keys, numerology, somatics, energy alchemy, shadow work. And so I'm working with all of the planes of us as a human being. We're working with the physical plane, intellectual plane, emotional plane, spiritual plane. And a lot of the work that I do, particularly when we're looking at the way human design recognizes both the personality and the design. So we're looking at the mind, the conscious mind, and then the vehicle or the somatics, the body, the vehicle. And then we're looking at the centers within the body, one of which is sometimes called the ego. It's also the will center. It's also part of the heart chakra and the heart energy system. And so I want to give that context before I say the ego part of us is the very human part that is linked to our mind that wants to grow, that wants more.
Mm-hmm.
Our essence, this is the part where I disagree in a beautifully friendly way. Our essence doesn't want to grow. It is everything already. It has no desire to be more. It doesn't need to push or be higher than. The language, our higher self, is something I used for years, and now I am so anti it. There's nothing higher or lower about spirituality because our spirit is greater than all of it and it exists on every timeline and it doesn't need to move or go anywhere because it is essential. It is, in essence, everything is omnipresent. And so the ego part of us is in the here and now, and it has a timeline, and it wants more, and it references the past, and it lives a little in shame, and it wants to be better than because it's always thinking about survival, and it's always thinking about power dynamics, and it's always thinking. Whereas the essence part of us isn't driven by thought at all. It's always coming from love.
Hmm. Hmm. See, this is why I love definitions because all of this can be true. And this is why I love that each of us has a different perspective because I love that I'm probably going to get the saying wrong, but you could have six people watching a burning house and they would all have a different perspective, right? And that's why I also love that you said, for the last 3 decades, I would have defined it like that. But now you're in a different phase because you're experiencing ego and essence in a new way, in a new um, realm, if you will, and paradigm. And so thank you for sharing this new perspective. I love that. Okay, Cass, so why don't we have you introduce yourself? It's okay. You were probably on a call, I'm
I
sure.
totally was, and this is just we're gonna release the ego that all of a sudden like went into fight or flight mode. This is like perfect. I came in with Ebony and I was like, yes, check, yes, check. Um, so yes, I offer leadership energetic blueprints. I'm really into, I started as a psychic medium and have since really latched on to leadership energetics in the way of speaking to numerology and just energy in general. And so, what I offer is a lot of that. Hey, how do you lead in your life? Whether it's in corporate, which is where I just came from, or personal, or, relationships in between, or your relationship with yourself. That's my quick and dirty while we're here.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so what we're defining is the difference between ego and essence or soul or higher self, whatever we want to call it.
Mhm.
And you go. I want to hear.
Yeah, so I think maybe synchronicity is a beautiful thing. And so Ebony was talking about sort of like the higher self, which also is really cute because it triggers me now. Because to me, because of energetics, it's expansion versus constriction. And constriction is still a like human word that I don't necessarily subscribe to either. But um hierarchy is hard for me. And so ego sort of demands this small window, if you will, of, okay, I need to think about my survival. Same thing, Ebony, that you were speaking about. And I need to focus on what's immediately next to keep me safe. And so again, the ego is this friend, at least I view it that way now, who's constantly there to say, we don't know if this new coffee shop is safe because you've never been there, right? What could happen? What could happen to your human physical body if you're doing this? And so then it goes to the psychological as well, right? It's always trying to keep us safe with the known. And sometimes the toxic to your soul or your essence um, seems to be safer than actually diving into something unknown. And so, likewise with essence and soul, I would look at that as the deeper desire, right? When we think of, again, it's hard to explain for me on a human level because the soul, the essence is in theory connected to everything and everyone else here on this earth and for potentially beyond. And so it's that collective, hey, this feels in alignment. There's no scarcity mindset. There's no, I should do this. Should is the immediate word that kills everything, um, with including joy. So I know again, it's probably a little all over the place, but yeah, I mean, I would associate it with the word soul and just
Hmm.
what's divinely aligned with you.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with all of these definitions. I feel like my ego is always there to keep me safe. However, I use it as a way to check in with myself and be like, oh, aha, hello, I see you again. What are you trying to teach me? I see you getting all fearful because I'm always full of fear. Like that's just how I grew up, just in constant fear of all sorts of things. And so it really is my balancing scale of really doing a good check-in with myself if I'm making decisions from a soul-aligned place, or am I doing it out of fear? And I allow myself to have all of these feelings because it's information. It's divine data for me to go deeper into a topic or to sit with my inner child and be like, yeah, that kind of sucks. And that's the feeling that you have. And I love that we can do that now as we are more, let's say, spiritually aware, if you will, than most people. And one of the things I would love to talk about is ways that you all have witnessed people who are disguising the ego in different mechanisms. It could be disguising it through service or disguising it through toxic positivity or whatever it may be, right? So how have you seen ego show up, but it's actually a disguise for something else?
I have a fairly recent example of feedback that was given to me by someone I trust. It's actually one of my direct reports, but I consider her a soul sister. Um, she had said to me a couple months ago, she said, sometimes I wonder if the joy or the humor you bring to certain aspects of a meeting is really you just being comfortable with having the lowest status in the room.
To
And it
you?
was to me. And so it was super interesting because for me, it's just like I bring joy and humor into things because I know how heavy things can sort of seem. And it was also a really good indicator of, and she said this to me after the fact. She said, it could just be my fear because I mask so heavily in corporate spaces that I'm projecting this across. But that quote really resonated with me because there was a part of my ego that I think if I have learned, and now it's sort of like a pattern, that if I am personable in that way, then people aren't afraid of me. And so then the conversation can sort of take on what it needs to take on. We're more apt to come to similar decisions or compromise or things of that nature. It doesn't feel like giving away my power, but it's something that has been in my mind that's like, hey, is that my ego trying to keep me safe from having hard conversations or coming off as like this powerful being versus, hey, I'm in this with you. And so there's a healthy dose of, am I making myself more palatable
Mhm.
versus am I really just bringing my power and saying like this isn't that big of a deal. Let's figure it out together. So
Mm.
I
Oh,
love Ebonie's smile on
I need
that.
to know the
I love it because
conclusion.
I was literally at a facilitation festival a few weeks in the middle of June, a few weeks ago, and one of the workshops I went to was about self-sabotage. And I almost didn't go to it because, there are probably other things. And she's a facilitator that I know, and she was like, "Don't come to my workshop. You do this work. Go somewhere else." And I went to a money workshop and they were so disorganized and like no, they weren't sitting down and they weren't getting on with it, and it was I was like, I can't stay here, I have to go. So I went back to the first space, and what came up for me as a form of self-sabotage was I make myself palatable so that I don't come across intimidating. And actually, it's a form of manipulation, and I need to stop doing it. And I recognize that it's not purposeful manipulation, but it's a play, a strategy, if you like, that a younger version of me
Mhm.
learned. Don't be intimidating, don't be too willful, be too charismatic, don't shine too brightly, don't go in and be too quick. Like there's so many different ways that I can that were labeled ego when I was younger. You're so egoic, you take up so much space, that the ego took over and went, well, we're palatable then. We won't compete then. We'll always be the nice one then. And it is now a layer of me self-sabotaging or being in ego to deny what is true, which is that I'm brilliant and I don't need to be dumbing it down or playing ditzy to be more palatable.
Mm.
I
Wow.
knew I brought that up for a reason.
Yeah, which is why I was like, really?
That's so good. So good. Well, Eva,
Mm.
you deal with ego a lot. It's the main part of your business. So, what do you see? And I know you have a game. Does ego come up in your business game too?
It doesn't come up. Oh, okay, let's rewind a little bit and then I'll talk about the game too. Um, in terms of the ego, it does show up a lot. And there's this definition that I heard recently, is 4D spiritual ego. So it's not 3D anymore, it's a 4D. And this 4D spiritual ego is essentially somebody who is spiritual already. Like they are in, they understand all of the definitions, they understand like everything that like they're not completely 3D already. Like they have the knowledge, yet they didn't step into the knowledge yet. So they didn't embody the knowledge yet. They're still sitting in that in the head. So all of that knowledge becomes part of their ego, yet it's not embodied fully.
Hmm.
And this is a very interesting one that I see a lot because um and it's like and in addition to that, it's even harder to break through that ego because all of a sudden that ego highly associates itself with I'm sorry, I'm still going to continue using higher self, but with that essence of the human, yet they're not the essence of the human. It's almost they shut up the essence of the human by being in that 4D version of themselves. And it's usually might come out as, oh my God, I know better. I've already heard this, been there, done that myself too. um, or it might be like, oh my God, I don't want to hear your problem. This is low vibe. I'm only the high vibes and all of that. Instead of fully embodying what exactly is going on, they kind of like push it away. And what pushes it away is actually the ego, that 4D ego. It's not the essence of themselves. Because once we step into the 5D, into that higher version, into our essence, we can take whatever is going on. We don't need to push it away. We accept it. We love it. It's all
Mhm.
there for us for whatever reason. All we can do is just be there and
Mm.
then choose
I love
different.
I love this. I just want to share an example so I can bring it home for some people. I heard the
Mhm.
other day through one of our amazing columnists, Michelle Vandehey. She was talking about the difference between trauma informed and trauma centered. And I had never thought about it from this perspective. When you have somebody who is trauma informed, it means they only took the knowledge, whereas trauma centered means they're embodying that knowledge. And I was like, oh my goodness, I've never even thought about that. Trauma informed is just meaning you're informed about trauma, whereas trauma centered, whatever the modality is that they're doing, means that they're actually using the knowledge to make sure that their words are correct or she was talking about yoga, her yoga movements are correct. And every word she says in her trauma centered yoga is very trauma centered. Like she doesn't use certain words because of the triggering points to them. And I was like, oh, this is fascinating. And so that goes back to what you were saying, the difference between the 4D ego and the 5D ego and the 3D ego. There's a part where we have knowledge, but we're not embodying that part of it. So I wanted to give another example that kind of solidifies that for us. And I think that's really, really a profound, for me, up level because I think terms are thrown around so much these days, and everybody has all these certifications and buzzy words and blah, blah, blah. But are we actually embodying those things? So thank you for sharing that part because I think that's really, really important. I'm recognizing our time's running a little bit low, but I did want to get to this one last question, which was, what practices help keep you as a leader rooted in your essence and your ego so that there's balance and alignment? Who wants to go first?
I have an immediate reaction.
Okay, go.
Um, am I observing or am I absorbing? Like that's like an immediate, really quick thing that I ask myself, especially when I become emotionally triggered about some sort of situation. Then that leads me to say, is this my ego trying to keep me safe? Like, yes, I had an emotional reaction. Let's process that. But and also there's this piece to it of, am I emotionally being triggered because of some past thing? Is my ego trying to keep me safe? Is this morally just not in alignment with me? Though it leads to that kind of conversation internally, where then I can decide sort of what my next step is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. Observing or absorbing.
Absorbing.
Okay. Okay. Those are questions I'm going to start asking myself. Who wants to go next?
Happy
I can
to.
go.
Okay.
Um, so there's several things that came into my mind right away. And one of them was cast exactly the same thing. It was more like whenever something is happening, and especially if there's a certain feeling deep inside me that is like something is off. And this is when I just kind of take a step back and I ask myself, what exactly is going on right now? So instead of reacting right away, I take that moment and see what is in this experience for me. What exactly is going on? What exactly is being shown here right now to me? So that I can act differently potentially or the same, depending on what exactly is happening. That's taking that step is and kind of like just more observant to what exactly is going on gives me the opportunity to make a more aligned action afterwards. So instead of overreacting, I react according to what would be the most aligned action to myself. So that is kind of number one that dropped into me right away. And then the second one, and that comes down if you have a business, for example, but it's not just business, it's also if you have a life goal, if you have a life vision for yourself, no matter if it shows up as a business or you working for somebody else, always remind yourself, what is that life goal that I currently have? What is it? And what is it asking for me? And is the action that I'm going to take going to be aligned with what I'm actually planting in this world? Or is it going to take me somewhere completely else? And having that North Star, that kind of like that point in front of me, makes me gives me clarity in terms of the decision as to what exactly I need to do next. And if it's not aligned, I don't even need to spend energy there. But
Mm-hmm.
if it's aligned, hey, I know this one is for me.
Yes, I love that. So responding versus reacting and having a North Star. That's really, really good. All right, Ebony.
I come back to authority, strategy and authority, right? And like, so my authority is an emotional one. And for years, I tried to stop myself from having an emotional reaction because I heard so frequently in spiritual spaces, did you have $1,000 reaction to something that was a $10 situation? Yes, all the time, because I'm an emotional authority. And so I'm not triggered, I'm emotional. And also, I'm so over, you're not allowed to trigger anyone. No, my work is triggering. That's the whole point. If you're not being triggered, you're not learning anything new. There's nuance to that. So for me, it really comes back to not trying to intellectualize my emotions or not try and get further ahead of them and be like, am I an ego or am I an essence? But actually just be like, am I here now? And in this moment, what is it that I'm feeling? And often, because I have a defined ego in my design, it is a very egoic or a very willful thing that wants to be expressed. I am in the middle of a conversation with my partner at the moment, and I want something that I'm not able to get. And for a long time, I would have gone, well, in essence, I am love, and in essence, I should let this go. It's ego that is going to fight for it. So I should acquiesce. And these days, I'm like, I'm not fucking acquiescing. I'm going to ride the wave of my emotion because it's true. And that doesn't make him not true, because both things can exist. And whereas before I would do anything to avoid the conflict, now I really know that whatever this situation is, even if I'm expressing shadow, that shadow is a seed that can lead to a bloom, which then leads to fruit for both of us. And so even if he hates the fact that I'm being emotional, and I hate the fact that I'm being emotional, I know that there's treasure if I stay true to my expression and let the wave be ridden.
Mm-hmm.
And so that thing of like, what is your authority, and can you trust it, and can you stay with it, even if the intellect wants to override, even if the mind says this is more sensible, this is more intellectual, this is the higher road? Can you stay in what is really true for you, knowing that love, we will return to love? That's the whole point. But it doesn't mean, and love doesn't mean being acquiescing. Love doesn't mean being walked all over. Sometimes it means being fully expressed and having a moment of sitting in the discomfort of not seeing the same thing or feeling the same way or heading in the same direction, because that can then lead to a third way.
Mm-hmm.
And without that truth and without that full expression, you're both just masking, and that is ego. So I don't know if that really answered the question, but that's my thing at the moment, my
You
practice.
channeled it. That made sense to me. I heard it. I felt it. Oh my gosh, I love this so much. As you can see, this is why we do these, because you get three completely different perspectives, but all coming back to the same point of what is our feminine? What is our masculine? How can we have nuanced conversations so that we can all heal this world one show, one word at a time, coming together. So thank you so much for being here today, and we will see you on the next one. If you'd like to meet any of these gorgeous ladies, all their details will be in the show notes.
Thank you so much.